All right, so hello and welcome to the fiscal year 2024 Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program Request for Applications Technical Assistance webinar. To access the Spanish language interpretation channel, click on the interpretation icon in the shape of a globe in the lower part of your screen, and then select the Spanish language. Just a couple housekeeping items before we get fully started. So this webinar is being recorded, and the slides and the recording from this webinar will be posted at the link below. It's the same place where you registered for this event. And we'll also put the link for that shortly here in the chat. Throughout the presentation, please do type any questions into the Q&A box, and we're going to go through and answer those in order at the end of the presentation. Please do make sure to use the Q&A box and not the chat, as that's where we will be reading the questions from. This is USDA's non-discrimination statement. This slide contains contact info for individuals with disabilities to request reasonable accommodations. That language access services will be provided to limited English proficient individuals upon request, and that anyone wishing to file a complaint can utilize the phone number, fax number, or postal mailing address listed on the slide. And with that, I'll first turn it over to our Ag Systems Division Director, Dr. Melvin Carter.
All right, can everybody hear me? Good to go? All right. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Melvin Carter. I'm the Director of the Agricultural Systems Division in the Institute of Food Production and Sustainability here at USDA NIFA. And I welcome you to our Technical Assistant webinar for the Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program, better known as BFRDP. I bring you greetings from USDA NIFA, and on behalf of our leadership, we extend a heartfelt thanks for your support and interest in the program. The primary goal of BFRDP is to help beginning farmers and ranchers in the United States and its territories enter and or improve their success in farming, ranching, and land management through education, outreach, and technical assistance. The ultimate goal is to provide the knowledge, skills, and tools needed to make successful decisions towards sustainability. We also want to ensure that there will be a next generation of farmers and ranchers to continue the U.S. agricultural production. As you know, here in NIFA, we support research, education, and extension projects that address key problems of local, regional, national, and global importance. I think the continuation of U.S. agriculture production is of global importance. This is a $28 million program, and from the look at the registration of almost 600 for today, there will be fierce competition. Thus, I challenge you to ask the staff here the questions that you will need to make your application very competitive. Dr. Abadaji has been with the program many years and knows it in and out. His wealth of knowledge here is unmatched, so definitely tap into it. From all of that, please stay engaged and help us further improve the program. We ask you to engage one another. Your next collaborator could be right here in the room with you. We ask you definitely stay engaged and just learn from one another. Some of the best friendships can be made here, and most of all, we want you to have fun with this engagement. So I'll turn it back over, but thank you for being here once again.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Carter, for those remarks. This is Dennis Ebodage. I'm the National Program Leader for the Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program. Becca, back to you.
And hello again, everyone. My name is Rebecca Hansen. I'm the Primary Program Specialist for BFRDP here at USDA NIFA. And my colleague Aisha is here with us as well.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aisha Magruder. I'm also a program specialist in IFPS, working out of Mississippi. And we thank you all for coming today and hope we can be of some service to you.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. The topics that we will cover today include the NIFA and program overview. Then we'll have some details on the request for applications, also known as the RFA. We'll be covering proposal evaluation processes and the evaluation criteria. And then we have some additional information and resources, including some intros from our grants management specialists. And finally, we will close out with questions and answers. And as I noted earlier, and also in the chat, please do put your questions in the Q&A box throughout the presentation. And then we will respond to the questions in the order that we receive them. And I'll turn it back over to you, Dennis.
Okay, thank you, Becca. As Dr. Carter alluded to, we have the goals of BFRDP that we need to be looking at to make sure that they are abided by. And today, we're going to try as much as we can to share with you all you need to know about this program so you can successfully apply and get funded. The National Institute of Food and Agriculture is a science funding agency within the department. And the mission area is the Research, Education, and Economics mission area. And with NIFA, it does invest and support initiatives to ensure long-term viability in agriculture. It does provide funding and strategic leadership in the discovery of agriculture and technology to reach the people that it can put into practice. There are 12 topics covered by NIFA programs, and they include animals and plants, advanced technologies, business and economy, natural resources, and with BFRDP, it's in farming and ranching. And also, we do have food and nutrition security, as well as international division within NIFA. As Dr. Carter alluded to earlier, the primary goal of BFRDP is to enter and improve successes in farming and ranching. It supports projects that provide education, mentoring, and technical assistance. And also, it does support knowledge, skills, and tools needed to make informed decisions for farming operations for future generations. Eligibility. All these groups listed here are eligible to apply. If you do not have any incorporation, then you will not be eligible to apply. So long as you are not a single individual, you should be able to apply. Now, exclusions. If you already have a project somewhere else and you are submitting that proposal or project to us, it will not be reviewed. And if you're an individual, you need to be within an organization or a partnership to be able to apply. If you already have a simplified standard grant, you need to apply for a regular standard grant and not another simplified grant. To meet geographical diversity, we need to ensure that the same organization doesn't get more than one proposal funded in a single year. And if you were funded in 2022 or 2023, you cannot apply this grant cycle. We have project types that are education and extension. We also have grant types that are standard, simplified, standard, and education. The one we don't have this year is the clearinghouse, which will be competed for next grant cycle. These are the project and grant type descriptions that we have. If you are a beginner with 3 years or less of experience, we would advise you apply to the simplified, which is less than 50,000, with less scope of work, few target audience, few lower geographic area. But if you have a lot of experience, you can start with the standard. So we have all these breakdowns to assist you make a choice as to where you want to apply. Other than the simplified, the rest are for 36 months. Match requirement. There's a match requirement of 25%, but if you are serving underserved area of population, you can request for a match waiver. And the way you apply for that is at the top of your budget justification, you state the very sentence here in bold. This applicant plans to serve an underserved area of population and would like to request a 25% match. This way you will receive it. Now, underserved population is any population that has difficulty gaining access to USDA programs and services. And it does include ethnicity and race, but it's not exclusive that. If it's a limited resource farmer population, that is fine. You don't have to be a specific ethnic race to qualify. Aisha, to you, please.
All right, thank you, Dennis.
You're
Today
welcome.
I will be discussing the application details and documents that will be needed. So important application details are the RFA is available online at the Begin Farmer and Rancher Development Program funding opportunity page. And you can find it on the BFRDP webpage along with some frequently asked questions. The application deadline for this year is 5 p.m. Eastern Time, April 4th, and applications must be submitted through grants.gov. So the total funding available in FY 2024 is a rough estimate of about $24 million. And this is the funding opportunity number that you will need to submit your application. And we have two different program codes to apply under. The BFRDA, which is the Standard and Simplified Standard Grants, or BFRDB Educational Team. The maximum funding per award is in between $49,999 and $750,000. And we can only award one award per institution. And just a disclaimer, the program has flexibility to expand on award types and related award amount that it funds. So some other very important key documents that you'll need with your application is your project summary, abstract, project narrative, budget and budget justification, bibliography, reference list, data management plan, and some other documents that you can find in the RFA and in the NIFA grants application guide. And Becca is dropping the links in the chat as well. Some other application details. The project narrative is a 20-page limit or 10 pages for the simplified standard grants, and it is strictly enforced. 1.5 spacing, 12-point Times New Roman font, and that includes text, figures, and tables. And then within the 20 pages or the 10 pages for simplified standard grants, it would need to describe the list of headings of information required in the narrative. If applicable, response to previous review for resubmissions, which you would need to add an additional 1 page that does not count towards page limit. And then if applicable as well, prior BFRDP accomplishments, additional 1 page, and also does not count towards the page limit. And applications exceeding those page limits will be returned without review. So please adhere to these details. The data management plan, investigators must provide detail up to 2 pages only. Business and management plans includes expected data type, data format, data storage and preservation, data sharing, protection, and public access, roles and responsibilities. And you could find this at the link that will be in the chat provided. When it's time to submit your application, we only accept electronic submission of applications. And you can also find the grants application guide at the link provided. And application documents must be in PDF format to be accepted by NIFA, including your project narrative and budget justifications. And the grants.gov may allow other formats, but NIFA does not. And please refrain from using third-party PDF builders. All right, back to you, Dennis.
Thank you, Aisha. To follow up on Aisha's last slide, please ensure that your incorporation is current, that you have a unique entity identifier. It used to be called the DUNS number, Data Universal Numbering System. Ensure that you have your employee identification number as well. In terms of the evaluation process, when you submit your application, it will be submitted to at least 3 reviewers with the appropriate experience to review your proposal, and they would evaluate it based on the strengths and weaknesses. And then when it comes to the deliberations, then they will all meet with all the other reviewers, and a discussion will be made in terms of the final rating and ranking of that proposal. Evaluation criteria. You have small, medium, large, and standard, and education team. All these do come in from legislative priorities as well. Items 5 and 6 are the secretary's priorities, and the rest of them are legislative priorities. And please ensure to look at this very well before you begin to write your application. For the simplified, Aisha did mention this. It has to be up to 10 pages. It doesn't have to be up to 10 pages. And then for the regular one, up to 20 pages. The basic difference here is that for the simplified, it's no more than 10 pages, and you do not have to have an outside evaluator. Whereas with the standard one, you have to have an outside evaluator. Now, in terms of partnership and collaborations, please ensure that you reach out to your collaborators before you begin to write your application. So you have a group, 1 or 2, or depending on the extent you like, to join you in the process. And that is very important. And it's also applicable to have letters of commitment and to follow your application. Consultation of beginning farmers and ranchers. This is an area where in the past few years, we have had challenges with applicants not consulting their beginning farmers and ranchers to find out exactly how to proceed. The key areas here: design, implementation, and decision-making. You need to include that in your application on the consultation of beginning farmers and ranchers. Relevancy. The proposal, is it relevant? Is it addressing the priorities? One or two priorities are good enough to get started, but please do not try to address all 14 priorities. That will be too much for a 3-year project. Technical merit. This is also important. Are the objectives and activities innovative? Are performance targets, outcomes, project partnerships and collaborations? You need to emphasize this. Also, the budget for planned activities. Are they reasonable? You don't want to have everything into salaries and then not enough for programs. Achievability. Is your effort going to be successful? This is important. Objectives, stress your objectives, and also decision making, that's important as well. Expertise and track record. Please stress the expertise of the group you are working with in your application. That is very important. And go over all the details you need line by line in the evaluation criteria. Those are very important because reviewers will look at them. Adequacy of support personnel and facilities. Please stress the expertise of your collaborators and ensure that you have adequate facilities for your work. Now, evaluation process, logic model, that's important. Data management plan, as Aisha alluded to, that's important. And also articulate how the PD and co-PDs plan to manage and disseminate the project effort. Outcomes-based reporting, this is very important. There's a link here, which is also in the request for applications. You want to look at the inputs, outputs, outcomes. Now, for a 3-year project, it's not timely to have impacts, but if you can document outcomes in changes in knowledge, behavior, or condition, you'll be doing great. Timeline. Proposals are due April 4th. Proposals will be reviewed around June. And by August, July, August, we will make sure that the awards management division has all they need to get going. And Stephen Evans will emphasize on this as well.
Hello, my name's Stephen Evans. Oh, are you done, Dennis?
Yeah, I'm done.
My name is Stephen Evans. I am a grants management specialist in AMD. We're responsible in AMD for making sure that your proposals meet the administrative requirements to become an award. William?
Hi, my name is Bill Mallett, grants management specialist with the awards management division. A few hot topics that I want to cover is stuff that we see over the years. When you send in your current and pending, make sure you put this award on the current and pending, so we don't have to send it back and ask for it. Key personnel, if they're taking federal funds, you must include the budget effort on the current and pending, and the effort for the current and pending must be greater than or equal to the budget effort. Budget and budget narrative, please confirm that your budget and budget narrative match. So when they come and make sure they match. Subcontracts, we would need a letter of commitment, statement of work, budget and budget narrative. For consultants, We will need the name, the hourly rate of pay that they get paid, and the number of hours that they're expected to work. And then for indirect cost, BFRD uses the lower of the legislative cap, 10%, the negotiated cost rate agreement, if you have one, or 10% de minimis rate. Those are the hot topics that we usually have to address with the awards.
Awesome,
Okay.
thank you. So I'm going to be covering some additional information and some resources for you all before we jump into Q&A. So some additional resources, Aisha covered a couple of these already. The NIFA grant application guide. This is a guide that will help you prepare and submit grant applications to NIFA through grants.gov. And it also includes an overview of how to prepare for the pre-award and application process. As Aisha also mentioned, please do visit our USDA BFRDP website to find information about the program and also access our funding opportunity page, which includes direct links to the RFA and the recording of this webinar and the slides of this webinar. The slides will also have direct links. So as you see here, you'll be able to just click right on the slide when those are posted after this webinar. And then finally, we strongly encourage you all to watch the recording from the How to Write a Strong USDA BFRDP Application. This webinar took place a few weeks ago, and the entire BFRDP team shares more about the application process and how to assist our applicants in writing a strong proposal. So that goes in very in depth on the process. So we would strongly encourage you all to take a look at that. And we'll post that in the chat here shortly. Data Gateway is a database that enables users to find funding data from previous and current NIFA programs. So for a list of previously funded BFRDP programs, please do visit the site on this slide, or you can also scan the QR code. And then we want to share that we have some upcoming informal BFRDP technical assistance office hours coming up on Wednesday, February 28th and March 13th to answer any additional questions. This will be a really informal 1.5-hour session for each of these. No registration is required. These will also not be recorded. So it's simply for you all to come in with questions as you're working through and putting together your applications. If you would like information on other upcoming NIFA events or RFAs, you can see the NIFA events calendar and also the upcoming RFA release calendar. And then I also wanted to share this really exciting opportunity that's coming up in just a week and a half. NIFA is hosting the annual Grants Workshop Technical Assistance Workshop on March 4th through 8th. This is a free 5-day virtual event, and it will cover a variety of topics, including accessing NIFA web resources on grants development and grants management, opportunities for selective NIFA applicants, and reporting and related topics. So please do take advantage of this opportunity as well. And then finally, we've included some additional grant resources, lots of resources for you all that will be readily accessible when the slides are posted after this webinar. And so at this point in time, we're going to move into our Q&A portion of the webinar. As I mentioned, please put your questions in the Q&A box and we'll respond to them in the order that we receive them. Please don't put them in the chat. We don't want to miss any. So we'll work through those Q&A questions in the Q&A box. And so with that, and I will also share the links that I just went through just in a moment in the chat. I'll turn it over to Aisha to start reading out some questions and going through some questions together.
All right, so the first question is, we are starting a farm with a nonprofit that serves blind and low vision. Is this the appropriate program for our farming endeavors, or are we better served under a different program?
So they are serving, Aisha?
They are serving blind and low vision people.
Now, if they are going to be farming, then this program is for anyone who is going to be farming. Does that
Alright.
help?
I'm sure it will. And if not, you can ask another question, Dennis can elaborate on it. Next question is, does having match make your application more competitive?
That's a very good question. It does not. It does not, because if you don't have to have a match, it's better not to include it, because it makes it more complicated for you. Because once you put in your match, you can take it out. Steve and William, you can please expand on that if you like.
Yeah, I'll do this. So if you put in a match, you will be held to that number. So if you actually have the ability to request a waiver, please do so. You do not want to get stuck not, have been able to get away from having match and you didn't do it. If you want someone to donate to you and your nonprofit, you don't need to put the match in if you don't have to. That's for us. If you put a match in, you are going to be required to meet that. So please avoid that if you can. Request a match waiver.
Right, thank you. Next one is, I would appreciate a definition of outreach. Does this simply mean outreach to beginning farmers and ranchers that could benefit from your education and technical assistance?
That is correct. So long as they are beginning farmers, less than 10 years. Now, it doesn't mean that if any other group comes to you for help, you're not going to help them. You can help them as well. But this program is designed for beginning farmers from 0 to 10 years.
All right. What if you have a current project that will lose funding in March and we apply for a different NIFA grant, but we won't get awarded decisions until July? Can we submit the project in our proposal?
I mean, there's nothing that precludes you from or prevents you from applying to more than one program. So long as you are not over 100% of your full-time equivalent.
Thank you. If we want to request a match waiver, should we still provide a budget with a match?
No. No, you can't do both. If you do both, you're going to be held liable for the match.
Can you please explain further how a private for-profit organization can apply? Can they be the lead on the grant?
Yes.
Can training participants be paid for their time spent in training?
Not wages. You can't be paid for wages, but you can be paid stipend. Steve, you want to jump on that?
Yeah, so in the circumstances here, like Dennis said, you're not able to pay them as a wage employee. You're basically paying as a stipend for, their time spent away from something, travel time, anything needed for them to come to this, but it cannot be a wage. It's very critical that you don't do that. It's just a stipend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Where can we find a list of the underserved areas and populations that will qualify for the match waiver?
That's an easy question and a good question as well. So long as you have any group that would encounter barriers in accessing primary health care services or have cultural or linguistic challenges, have challenges with getting broadband, any group is underserved population. Limited resource farmers are underserved. Anyone that has challenges getting access to USDA programs and services are underserved.
All right, thank you. If an organization was included as a subcontractor on a BFRDP grant in the past, would they still be eligible to apply for the simplified standard?
Yes.
How does the BFRDP view partnerships between nonprofit entities and educational institutions?
Same.
All right, we got a big question then, so we got listen for this one. As an individual currently farming on land owned by a nonprofit with established relationships with the unified school district and active participation in the CDFA farm to school grant, and having graduated from the ALBA Farmer Education Program in California, how does my position affect my eligibility for the BFRDP? Do I need to establish a new organization to qualify, or can my existing partnerships and educational background strengthen my application?
That is correct. Your existing situation should strengthen your project effort.
So he does need to establish a new organization to qualify.
If he's going to be applying independently, then he needs to establish his own or her own LLC or 501c3 or incorporation. But if you are applying through ALBA as a collaborator, then you cannot be applying for yourself.
Okay. I am writing from the University of Rhode Island Cooperative Extension. Our question is regarding exclusions, what is considered the same organization?
If you have the same UEI, EIN, Steve, you can expand on that as well, please.
So I'm sorry, can you repeat the question just real quick? What's the,
What is considered an organization if they have the same incorporation?
It's,
you're gonna have on that, the employee identification number and the UEI are gonna be some key indicators if it's the same. If it's two different organizations, you know, you can have different numbers and that works.
Right.
So you just kind of want to check how your federal reporting is. You know, is it all one number and, you know, the same UEI? Then you can only apply to one grant at a time that way.
Right. I'm sorry, you're done answering? Okay. Oh, where in the narrative is it expected for applicants to note BFR training categories? Just target audience or within objectives and approach methods?
It depends on how you write your application. You have to share within you and your partners the type of project you want to apply for. If you don't have that much experience, say less than 3 years, then you want to start with the simplified. If you have a lot of experience and you're going to work with a larger target audience, then you can go higher. It's entirely up to you and your team.
If I can add as well, for your target audience on page 20 of the RFA, when it talks about your approach, it asks to discuss how and where activities will be provided and how that's appropriate for your target audience. So that is part of one of the evaluation criteria as well. So do make sure to take a look at that in RFA.
Yeah, thank you, Becca. If you're going to be working with a small audience, it's best to apply for a smaller amount. Because if you apply for a larger amount, then that's not going to help your case. Back to you, Aisha.
All right, thank you. I've never applied for a grant before. How can I get technical assistance with the grant writing process? How do I work in collaboration partnership with who? I am a small firm just starting out.
That's a very good question. If you have a county office close by you or a USDA service center, which consists of the NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service, Farm Service Agency, Rural Development, or academia, or any nonprofit, and Becca will share the list of all our past grantees that are active. Those will be very helpful in getting you started to give you some guidance.
Yes, and I did include that link in the chat. That's our data gateway link, and that will also be included on the slides.
Thank you.
Yep. I'm going to take over asking some questions now. So what is the process for getting letters from contractors versus subawardees? Are these different from letters of support?
They have to be very specific on what you are looking for. A support means they're going to support you, but they are not being committed. Commitment means they're going to follow you through all the way from beginning to end of the project. So they have to be very specific on what they are writing. It's always a great idea not to write a form letter that is the same throughout. You want to have the letters written so that they are specific.
Awesome. All right, so if a nonprofit is applying who has never been a recipient, but has been a subcontractor for another organization's prior application, should they include that information in the application? Does that need to be part of the past accomplishments?
That would be helpful.
Yes. Can you provide examples of partnerships or collaborations that a small business or for-profit LLC is encouraged to have when applying?
It's entirely, it will depend on the group you have worked with or close by, who have the experience in what you're trying to do. That's very important. Reach out to those that are close by, that have the same interest in what you're trying to do.
Thank you. And Aisha, I'll turn it back to you.
We're at the top with Melinda's question.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have to be a C Corp or is an LLC acceptable?
Any corporation is acceptable, anyone.
Are sub-awardee and or contract budgets get included in the indirect cost-based calculation?
Steve?
So for your subawardees, they have their own indirect cost section in their budget, which is included in the direct cost on your budget itself. So you don't want to go and add it in twice. You just do it once, and it has its own section for subawardee that their IDC will be a part of. So the section for IDC is only for who is applying or who is filling out that budget.
Thank you, Stephen.
All right. What line item do contractors go in?
Contractors, basically subawardee, it's probably the same section that you're thinking of, unless you're thinking of a consultant contractor. If it's a consultant, consultants have their own line. So it's one of the two, depending on what you're looking at.
All right. You must have a collaborator. Well, do you must have a collaborator? Can they not have another application pending or from the previous year as well?
That should not have any relevance to that. I mean, so long as you are not over 100%, you should be fine.
All right. Could you please explain the role of outside evaluator?
Okay, that's a good question. The outside evaluator is an evaluator who is external to what you are doing or working on. And internal means someone who is within the project, and that's not really what you want. And it's good, it's a good idea to have your internal evaluator, but for simplified, internal evaluator is fine. For other grants, you need an external evaluator. It doesn't preclude you from having an internal evaluator. But instead of encouraged in the past, we strongly, it's a requirement this time going forward to have an external evaluator.
Okay, thank you. Do the collaborating entities need to be all organizations? Is it possible to provide an example of an acceptable collaboration?
It has to be someone or a group you are comfortable with. You and your team can make that decision, and the reviewers cannot make that decision for you. So long as you have collaborators who have the expertise in getting the work done, you should be successful. That shouldn't be a challenge.
All right. Can you explain your understanding of the difference between partners and collaborators? And do you expect LOS from both types of parties?
Okay. Repeat this first part of the question, the partners and collaborators, right?
Yes, can you explain the difference between them?
The way I will look at it, partners mean groups that work with you closely. Those are your partners. Collaborators are those, they work closely, but not as intense as partners. Stephen, how do you see that?
That's about the same thing right there.
Okay. What was the second part of the question?
Do you expect LOS from both types of parties?
From both types?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you do submit your letter of support based on what you are trying to substantiate in your application. If you feel that what you have presented in your application is good enough and you don't need that letter of support, then you don't have to have it. But it does help to substantiate what you're trying to work on if you provide that letter of support. Then the reviewer say, oh yes, this applicant really knows what he or she is working on.
Can funds be used to purchase a greenhouse?
To purchase a what?
Greenhouse.
Grain? Well, so long as
Mhm.
what you are buying is less than 5,000, Stephen, you can expand on that because anything less than 5,000 is supply and anything over 5,000 is equipment. Stephen or William?
Right, because that's gonna be over $5,000, so that would be considered equipment. So that would not be able to purchase.
Just make sure that when you're looking at the greenhouse, I do know this because I have looked at a few that some of them are lower prices. If it's under 5,000, that goes in materials and supplies as a purchase.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If it's under 5,000, right?
All right. Number 5 in the list of priorities mentions management of agricultural credit. What are agricultural credits? You are mute, Dennis.
What is agricultural credit?
Mm-hmm.
Can they expand on that question, please? You mean like getting credit from agriculture organization?
It seemed like they were reading from something because they said number 5 in the list of priorities.
Okay, you mean legislative priorities?
I believe so.
Okay, now in terms of that, that means having that very group that you are working with work with you on getting a good credit, be it from a bank or from agriculture or from any type of group, like a cooperative, so that you be well positioned in terms of farm financial management when you start your own farm or sustain an existing farm. That's essentially what that means.
Okay. Just verifying that we are eligible, fiscal year award is throwing us off. We have a FY21 award that was awarded on September 21st and ends on 8/31. Are we eligible to apply? Thank you.
Yes. If you have a 2022 or a 2023 project, you cannot apply. Anything below that, you can apply. Any project effort below that, you certainly can apply.
Okay. Also, for the match waiver, must the project only serve underserved populations or just include? There are several definitions of underserved populations. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Can you please clarify which definition you are using?
Okay, any definition where you have a group who have limited access to programs and services, receive fewer healthcare services, encounter barriers to access to primary healthcare services, economic, cultural, or linguistic, any of these would fit.
I believe also veterans, isn't it correct that we will do a waiver for that?
I mean, let me put it this way. Any group you are serving that needs any type of help qualifies as underserved population. It will be different if you are serving someone who makes 200,000 or 300,000 a year, then that's a different issue. But if you are serving someone who needs help, that qualifies you to serve underserved.
Sorry, on mute. Can third-party evaluators be employed by partner or collaborating organizations?
It's entirely up to the project director, how they want to utilize that individual. But then if you have that person employed, then how does that individual become an external evaluator? So that's a big question. Because if he's employed and working for that organization, how do you then differentiate that individual from an external evaluator? But if you are paying the person to work on your evaluation, solely on evaluation, I mean, that's working for you, but not really working with other programs or other efforts of your program.
If we want to request a match waiver, should we still provide a budget with a match? I believe
No.
that was-
No, you don't.
From the AMD perspective on that, if you request a match waiver, but you put match in on your budget, you'll be stuck with the match amount. So if you're going to request a match waiver, I would suggest not even including the match in there.
If you
Right,
request that, thank you, Stephen. If you request a match waiver, if there's a situation where you will not be qualified, you will be asked to come back and put in the match, but that rarely happens. So I will not be hesitant in putting the requirements on there at the top of the budget justification. So long as you are serving underserved group or population, you should be fine.
Okay. If we have a current award open until August 31st, 2024, that we will ask for a no-cost extension through December 31st, 2024, are we still eligible to apply to this RFA?
No. Because December is a new fiscal year for the federal government, although it's a calendar year of 2024. So it's best to have your work completed by 8/31/2024. Stephen, would you like to expand on that, please?
So our work is all done on the calendar effort for federal awards, like Dennis was talking about. So the beginning and end date go within that time frame. So normally BFRD will have a start date, 9/1. What are we doing this year? 9/1, 9/15, something like that this year, or 8/15, one of them.
Correct. 9/15.
9/15. So you would start the award at 9/15/2024, and it would end, 9/14/2025. That'd be a 1-year award. So right now you cannot go beyond the federal time limit of our calendar year. What you're asking for is to have 3 months more. And if you're going to apply for a new award, you have to end yours in 8/31 and not go beyond that date. If you're not going to have a new award go into the 25 fiscal year, then you can ask for your extension. But the way I'm reading this, you're wanting a new award. So.
All right. What kinds of incentives can this grant funds be used for? Specifically, scholarships, travel for students to class, daycare for kids, for kids or students, meals during training, and lodging attendance, stipend.
Yeah, the incentives, I don't know about daycare because when it comes to, so long as you are going by what's in the Code of Federal Regulations on stipends, you'll be fine. That's Code of Federal Regulations, CFR 200. Correct, Stephen?
Yeah, on this one, I would actually have to have them get back to me in the email, and we'd have to go through this because I'm not sure how that would even work with the daycare for kids. So that's something that even I would have to go and look up at this point in time. But yeah, if you want to send an email to us, we're more than happy to answer it in AMD. So
All right. Can you say what sub awardees need to submit again?
Bill, you want to handle this? Bill, you're on mute.
The sub awardees. Yeah, they need to submit everything that the regular awardee needs to. Is that the question?
Yes, what they need to submit.
Just they would need to submit the current and pending, they would need to submit the budget narrative, everything that the regular awardee would submit,
Statement of work and letter of commitment.
letter of commitment.
All right, let's see. Bill, the grant management specialist, mentioned the key personnel in the current and pending doc must include federal efforts. Can that hot topic be explained again, please?
So for current and pending, you need to have the award on there, and your current and pending is the amount of work you're going to do on there. Where you're putting federal, he was actually wanting to say the budget effort. So if you're getting paid a key personnel within the award, you need to have an effort on the current and pending, and you also need to have an effort on the budget. So it was just a mistake of the word.
Okay. The RFA mentions contacting an authorized organization representative prior to starting an application to access the organization's readiness to submit an electronic application. Can you speak on this? You're on mute, Dennis.
Thank you, Aisha. In essence, what it entails here, for academia, that's not an issue, but for nonprofits, if you don't have your unique entity identifier, it's not going to allow you get into grants.gov to open up your workspace. I mean, I can assure you that. Ever since April 4 of 2024, when DUNS number stopped to exist, and then unique entity identifier came into place, if you don't have a unique entity identifier, you cannot go into grants.gov to submit an application. I mean, I don't know if that is nationwide, but for us, that is a challenge. That is why we strongly encourage everyone who is applying to ensure that they have everything current.
If I might add to that as well, in our previous webinar that we did on how to build a strong USDA BFRDP application, we go through the specific steps of what you need to do for first registering with SAM.gov and then registering on grants.gov. I just put the link in the chat for that webinar. And like I said, it has really detailed instructions of the links you need to go to do that, and make sure to do that in advance, because sometimes that does take some time to process through.
Thank you, Becca. Stephen, do you mind expanding on the sort that one has to get from sam.gov?
On sam.gov, we need you to be registered. So for an administrative requirement, one of the registrations is sam.gov, and you're going to go in there, you're going to fill out, answer some questions. You know, this is an important step, because this is where you're, starting to put things together, from being a nonprofit who's looking to get to doing work to you're setting things up to start doing your work as a, future grantee. As to contacting the authorized representative, I wasn't really sure what you were meaning by that, but for SAM.gov, you really need to have this done and ready to be this, because if they have a delay, this could delay your, process of getting your grant awarded.
Thank you, Stephen.
Okay. Does each partner in the collaboration need to be sub-awarded funds?
That depends on the project director on how they want to get it worked on.
And also, if you're submitted a question and I accidentally skipped over, it's my apologies. It may have already been answered, written. Becca is answering questions as well. So yeah, I apologize if I skipped. The next one is, let's see. Can the panel explain or define a farm or farming? We have an urban farm, but it's less than half an acre.
It doesn't matter how the size. It doesn't matter the size. So long as you are training individuals or aspiring farmers to go into farming or enhance their skills, tools to sustain their existing farming operations for future generations.
Okay. What typical partnerships are beginning farmers and ranchers using?
It's entirely up to you and your team, so long as you have partnerships that will be relevant to what you're trying to work on.
Okay. What typical partnership? Oh, sorry, read that one. How much time working on a project is required for someone to be considered a partner on the grant? If I had a 2-hour long quarterly meeting with partners to give feedback and guidance on the project, would that be enough time to consider them partners?
Well, a partner, so long as you have an established relationship, so long as you have an established relationship with that individual or group, that's your partner.
In terms of identifying beginning farmers and ranchers, how many farmers or ranchers do we as an applicant have to secure to get one of those grants?
That's a very good question. According to that very slide we had up in terms of the different categories of grants, the smallest is the simplified. So with the simplified, you are writing 10 pages or less, and you are working with few audience, few collaborators, not complex. So you ask for a smaller amount. But if you have a lot of experience, both you and your partners have lots of experience, then you can scale up the amount you're going to be asking, as well as the target audience, and also the geographic area you're going to be working on. So the key is the scope of work. That's the key. The small scope of work, smaller amount requested. Large scope, larger amount requested.
Okay. Will non-traditional farms, hydroponics farms count?
Yes. So long as what you're trying to share with your group or individuals are the types of occupation they would like to go into in becoming farmers. And please know that this program doesn't train individuals to go into employment. It trains them to improve their existing farms or go into farming as a farming enterprise.
Okay. Does the match waiver need to be submitted and approved prior to submitting an application?
No. Once you submit your application, at the top of your budget justification, enter that very statement and you'll be fine.
On page 26 of the RFA, it is recommended that we conduct an administrative review of the application before submission via grants.gov. Does that mean a person will review our application for administrative compliance and give feedback?
No. If you have any challenges with the workspace, you contact the 800 number for grants.gov. And if you are not able to get into the workspace, please contact grants.gov. But if it's a program question, you contact us. If it's an award question or budget, you contact Stephen or William.
I will
So-
mention here as well, so we do an administrative review before it goes to reviewers. So the main things that you need to make sure to at least get through the administration review is your project narrative, your project summary, your budget justification, your bibliography, and those bio sketches and current and pending. If you don't have those items or they're not in PDF format, your application will be automatically declined. You'll get a response of why, so we won't leave you in the dark. But please do make sure to have those key items so that it can be moved to the reviewers.
If you cannot obtain a match waiver, do you have to have a commitment for that match upon application? This is the case with other USDA grants, I believe.
That is correct. I don't see why you cannot get a match waiver. I honestly don't see why you cannot. If you have any concerns about that, please reach out to us.
Okay. Can you apply for this grant and urban agriculture and innovation production grant?
You can apply to as many as you would like, so long as you are not over 100% of your full-time equivalent. I mean, there's no guarantee you're going to get all of them, but if you do, then you can decide how many of them you want to be able to pursue. I mean, you can get more than one grant from NIFA, so long as you are not submitting the same proposal to the different program areas.
Does composting operations and soil health for agriculture applications meet the proposal requirements / purpose?
Yes.
Can you share additional info on the outside evaluator that is needed? Does that mean the evaluator can't be employed at the university or within our department?
I think we've had that question before. The evaluator can be employed anywhere. All we are saying is that the evaluator should not have a role in the day-to-day effort of that very program. Now, if the person is from external from that very program, then that is fine. But if that evaluator is a co-director or is involved in the daily operation of that effort, then that's not an outside evaluator.
Okay. For a nonprofit who wants to apply, but is on the fence about applying under the simplified versus standard application, do you have any advice on making that decision? For example, questions we should ask ourselves.
Aisha, can you repeat that again, please?
Yes. For a nonprofit who wants to apply, but is on the fence about applying under the simplified versus standard application, do you have any advice on making that decision? For
They can
example, questions we should ask ourselves.
Yeah, they can send us email and let us have a meeting. And then we can, from the discussions, then you can make a decision. But please set up a time to meet with us.
For organizations who currently have a BFRDP ending this fiscal year and are seeking new BFRDP funding, do you have any recommendations on how to make our application distinct and fresh while still continuing to fund core programs through BFRDP?
If they already have an existing project this year, they shouldn't be applying for another one. If I get your question correct. So if you have an existing 2022 or 2023 project, you shouldn't be applying this year because it will not be reviewed. Becca?
I was gonna say this, they're also asking, how can they make the application more distinct and fresh?
Yeah, but they wouldn't be able to apply. So how can they be making the application distinct if they are not eligible to apply? Unless I misunderstand your question.
As long as your current project is ending this fiscal year, so typically those will be ending by August of 2024. New awards will be starting typically September 15th of 2024. So as long as your project is ending and you're not applying for a no-cost extension, then you're eligible to apply. For the part on making your application distinct and fresh, I'm just going to put another plug in there for looking at our How to Write a Strong USDA BFRDP application. Dennis talks a lot about common mistakes that applicants tend to make and what reviewers are looking for. So I'll put that link again in the chat. Strongly would encourage you all to take a look at that recording.
All right, thank you. My organization is located in Houston, Texas. Is there a local BFRDP mentoring organization who can also assist us in my application process?
The link that Becca sent should have some of our grantees in that area you can reach out to. If not, you can reach out to your county extension agent or academia, Texas A&M is a good example, or Prairie View A&M, or USDA Service Center. Any of those groups will not charge you to give you guidance.
Can part of the budget be allocated for leasing land in order to start farming with underserved communities?
What about the budget?
Can part of the budget be allocated for leasing land in order to start farming with underserved communities?
I would say renting. Stephen, do y'all want to expand on that? Renting land is
Leasing
fine.
land, that is okay, as long as you use fair market value.
You cannot buy land, but you can lease. you cannot repair facilities either.
Yeah, no purchase of the land with this grant funds. You can look into renting or leasing, depending on how you want to call it, but purchase of land is not acceptable. Yeah.
Thank you all.
We are planning beginning farming in our farm and have registered cooperation. We got UEI, EIN registered in SAM and grant.gov. Can we apply for this grant? Is there a local USDA office in Culpeper, Virginia?
Yes. There is a local USDA office there.
I'm gonna
Right.
put in the chat a link to your local USDA service center. I think there's a couple other questions about that as well. So let me put that link in there. You'll be able to filter for your state and your county, and it will bring up your exact extension agent who can work with you.
Thank you, Becca.
Does a training program that focuses on workforce development of personnel, a beginning farmer employees fit within this funding RFA, I think they're trying to say.
Oh, that is a very good question, because with workforce development, you are paying individuals. And this program doesn't allow wages to be paid. So if you are working with workforce, you are preparing them to go into employment. Whereas this program is strictly to help you get individuals into farm enterprises upon graduation, or to upgrade, enhance their skills in their existing farm operations. So workforce is fine, but when you begin to pay them, it meanders away from the objective and the goals of this program.
Begin farmer is focused on available funding by a farm. How does this grant help a begin farmer? All that a begin farmer needs to buy, start a farm, successful training, mentoring, all farm related expenses, and also offer support program for others in farming community.
Yeah, that's a challenge, because it doesn't assist you in buying a farm, but it would help the trainers to train you in being successful in starting a farm. But that's a big challenge here, because a lot of times you need help in starting a farm. And unfortunately, this program doesn't allow you to give startup funds to the individuals you are training.
Is there a cap on the amount of stipend that can be paid for training participants?
Stephen, do you want to take that? I don't think there is a cap. It depends on how much, it depends on the extent of work to be done. But I think there is isn't there an amount per day, Stephen and William?
Oh, we'd have to get back to you on the amount per day, but as to a cap, you're paying for what they're needing.
Right.
So, it's going to be different with every area. Some areas, prices for things are different, and how you calculate what you're using is different. So I can't give you one number for that. But we will be looking in the budget and budget justifications to make sure that it's reasonable, which is a big portion of the budget, is that you have a reasonable expense.
Can you clarify on the difference between partners and subawards and contractors? who needs to provide a scope of work and itemized budget? Do they get included in the indirect cost-based calculations?
Stephen, you want to handle that?
Yeah, Bill, are you interested in this one or? So, since Bill isn't there right now, for subcontractors and subawardees, if you're considering the same thing, then you're actually giving us a budget for that subawardee. If you're considering it as a contractor, as you're just paying them contract to do one item, they have their own line item on the budget. We don't need a detailed breakdown of that because they're providing one service for that contract. Do they need to get indirect costs, rate-based calculation? If you have a subawardee, they can get their own indirect cost calculation and they can request that if necessary, if they don't have theirs already. It's called the de minimis form, and we can supply that to you. I believe it's also on our website in the indirect cost section.
Okay.
Thank you, Stephen.
Becca, do I have time for another question?
Yes, we are at about 2 minutes until the end of the webinar. We're working to get through as many questions as possible. We'll probably not get to quite all of them, but like I said, we have 2 sessions of office hours coming up, an hour and a half each, simply to just ask questions. So don't be alarmed. You'll have some other opportunities, and you can certainly reach out to us via email. And yeah, I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more.
Is rural development counted as underserved?
You mean if you live in a rural development area?
I think that's what they mean.
Yes.
If an organization has an active award, can they apply the following year for a different location that has a different UEI? Could both locations with different UEIs apply and potentially receive a grant the same year?
If they are the same organization, no. If they are not the same organization, yes.
And I think I got time for one more. Can you explain a bit more about the requirement to include an outside evaluator? What percentage of budget, what credentials does this evaluator should have?
So long as they have the experience as an evaluator, you are good to go. You want to ensure that they have the experience to get the work done. Whether they are paid or not paid, that's not really going to be a factor as far as giving higher points than someone not being paid. But if the individual you are bringing on board to serve as your evaluator has that experience to be an evaluator, then that is fine.
All right, thank you, Dennis, and I will turn it back over to Becca.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time today and for all of your questions. We're glad to get through so many of them and are definitely willing to answer more, like I said, in our office hours upcoming. Those are also in the link that I just shared in the chat. You'll see them, another link that you can click that will lead to those. Again, you don't need to register. You can just hop on when the time opens up on those days. And Dennis, Steve, all have anything to add before we close?
Yeah, we want to thank everyone for being with us today. Ms. Lois, we thank you for the signing. We appreciate that. Stephen, William, Becca, Aisha, We thank you all. Stephen, any comments, please?
No, I don't have any comments. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We're more than willing to try to help you or point you in the right direction of someone who can help you. Beyond that, thank you for coming.
Yeah, William, any comments, please?
No, like Steven said, just, if you have any questions, feel free to email us and we will find you the answer.
Yeah, thank you. Back to you, Becca.
Okay, thank you very much. All of our emails are just our first name dot last name at USDA.gov. Have a great rest of your day and thanks for being here.
Aisha, any comments?
No, no comments.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.